So this is my third time coming to Belgrade to teach this summer school. So I'm teaching a course, International Intervention in a Globalised World. A lot of colleagues back at home ask me, why do I keep coming out here? And that's not a difficult question to ask. I'm used to teaching and talking about intervention in the context of a UK environment, very, very much from the point of view, hearing the point of view and probably reflecting the point of view of being one who intervenes rather than who is intervened upon. And I come here and I talk to people, so very often students are obviously from the region, so living in effectively a post-conflict region. I think that one of the other things that I really like about coming out here is because it challenges me on a lot of different levels. So I've said already, it really challenges my thinking because I hear different perspectives, but it challenges me as well because I have to teach in a very different way here than when I teach in the UK. It's relatively rare for me in the UK to have a student who has got personal experience or whose family has personal experience of conflict, but here I'm surrounded by students who have, and you have to be mindful of that. On the other hand, being mindful of it and respecting it is one thing, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't have difficult conversations. So in that sense, it's not different. I am as prepared to have a difficult conversation here as I am in the United Kingdom, but the responses that I get will be very different, and I sometimes have to get at things in a very, very different way. So if I am talking to a Serb about conflict in the former Yugoslavia, I have to be aware that perhaps, that they have definitely got their own sensibilities that come into play, but that there also will be different types of knowledge. So my knowledge about a conflict is very much from a Western perspective. It's not the lived experience. And so what I find with the students here is that they are sometimes not so knowledgeable or maybe not so able to remove themselves from the wider experience, but they're very, very focused on the detail of their experience. So it is, if you like, a kind of macro versus micro response that I get, in the UK versus in Belgrade. The other thing as well is, so it's not only about my relationship with the students, it's about their relationships with each other. So I was nervous when I came out here because although of course it's my course, it's my module, I'm coming in, the first year especially, I was coming into an environment which I was not familiar with, which I was familiar with only through history books, so and political journals, newspaper reports, this type of thing. So a lot of nervousness about what I was going to be confronted with, and given that I'm a British citizen, part of NATO airstrikes, and I was going to be dealing with a lot of students from the former Yugoslavia, as well as other zones, conflict zones as well, potentially, where the UK has played sometimes a controversial role. I wasn't sure how the students were going to receive me and my thinking, my opinions and views on things. I took the approach then that I needed to think about this as being important for my own professional development in terms of my research. All right, so once I turned things around that way, of course I have my own views on things, and I have looked at intervention mostly either from a UK perspective or from a Russian perspective, since I'm primarily a Russian foreign policy analyst. But these are, big external powers very often that we're talking about. So I took the view really that in coming here, I could add a new dimension to my research, which was really taking into account not only that kind of great power, external intervening type of view, but understanding the impact on people in conflict zones and the perceptions of them as well. So so once I opened my mind up to that, and I saw myself as being able to learn and develop professionally from students, as well as hopefully it happening the other way, it became easier. All right, so I think it's important, if you are going to travel to another country and talk about these types of issues, that you're very, very prepared to open your mind, your thinking, your work, and your methods as well. Now, as it happens, I have a very discursive teaching style anyway. I've never been particularly interested in standing at the front of a classroom and talking at students. I like to learn from students, and also I like to confront my biases, my prejudices, and you don't do that if you don't engage with students. So that type of teaching method has served me very, very well here. The students are very responsive to it. And what I find, I do a little bit of lecturing as well, so I have slides, we go through them, but I let students stop and interrogate me, essentially. So what literature are you relying on? Where did you get those figures on casualties from? Why are you talking about this, but you're not talking about that? And then we start to widen out the discussions. I am a foreign policy analyst first and foremost. So to do foreign policy, I obviously have got some familiarity with political theory. I have to. But probably I'm much more grounded in the IR theoretical literature. So what I find here is that students are really, really happy when I focus on IR theories and when I make them talk through definitions and concepts, and of course I want them to ground that in the literature, but I'm also asking them then to think about whether or not that marries up with their experiences as well. The benefit, I think, of being a foreign policy scholar is that you've got to be minded towards interdisciplinarity. The foreign policy literature is rooted in the insights of psychologists, of sociologists, of lawyers, of economists, etc. So I'm used to not only thinking about the domestic environment, but also the international environment, but bringing together the insights of different disciplines. So law, for instance, when you're talking about international intervention, is crucial. What I think is important with interdisciplinarity, though, is that you acknowledge the limitations of your own knowledge. So I need to be very, very honest with students. I am not a legal expert, so I read, I read case studies, etc., from a political point of view. All right, so I make the legal political, I make the economic political, I make the social political. But the good thing about that is that at this summer school we have people coming from a lot of different backgrounds. So it's not just students who are still studying. There are students who have been working, who are active in politics, working for NGOs. I have one student who is working with UN peacekeepers. I have another one who is Austrian but is working out in Georgia. So she's very knowledgeable about South Ossetia, Abkhazia, etc., and doing a lot of work with NGOs. So there's interdisciplinarity, but there are also other experiences that are coming in. So we're talking about things in a very, very multifaceted way that makes for complex discussions. And that, I think, is the real value of education and this summer school, especially, that you have got people who are out there already working, active in politics, but they want to kind of keep up with the academic literature. They think that there is something that they can be learned. They want to look at how other people's thinking can shape what they do. Now, if that means that they go out there and they practice, whether it be for an NGO, an international organisation, whether they go into politics as a politician or something, but if that means that they go with a better understanding of the complexity of everything that they deal with, and they don't think that political decision making, particularly when it comes to intervention, is easy, then the summer school has more than done its job, really. I assume that ultimately our hope is here that we will help to deliver more people who are prepared to go out there and to think before they act, rather than just to act, or not act as it might be.